Welcome to the presentation for the 1920s book cover assignment. Before the Modernism period, the Victorian arts and crafts and Art Nouveau styles were characterized by ornate organic details, illustrations of women with elaborate dresses, and hand-drawn elegant type. We're now going to focus on an era where international artists and designers pulled away from elaborate designs to address the need for function and fundamentals. After World War I, the 20s were a decade of optimism for the future. The need to rebuild cities and lives allowed for the arrival of the modern age. First, we'll discuss the Dada movement. The Dada movement began as a literary movement and quickly spread to include everything from collage to performance art to poetry, but its main influence was on graphic design, specifically typography. It had bold use of type and emphasis on relationship between word and image. Dadaism had no formal characteristics, unlike any other graphic style, and was all about living in the moment for the moment. This carefree attitude gave Dadaists the power to expand freely in any direction, irrespective of social or aesthetic constraints. Despite Dadaists declaring themselves anti-art, they made lasting contributions to graphic design. Their work is characterized by chance placement and absurd titles. The Dadaists stood for anything and everything that contradicted convention and tradition. In place of meaning, they advocated nonsense. In place of order, they advocated anarchy. Black and red are good colors for Dadaist fonts, with muted ochres, blues, and browns as background colors. Designers experimented with expressive layouts in which type read vertically and diagonally, often overlapping itself in broken measures. This poster by Kurt Schwitters and Theo van Doesburg displays a deliberately chaotic layout. The text reads in all directions and combines fonts, symbols, and hand-drawn letter forms. Next, we'll discuss the Bauhaus movement. Bauhaus was the style most closely associated with the modern movement. The Bauhaus was an art and design school founded in 1919 by Walter Gropius, and it was renowned for its innovative teaching methods and experimental curriculum. The school's progressive teaching practices the passion for functionality, spanned the creative disciplines, as everything from architecture and graphics to furniture and product design were shaped by this newfound modern aesthetic. Bauhaus became a highly politicized movement with a socialist ethos, and the style rejected ornamentation in favor for functionality. Bauhaus designs are characterized by a utilitarian simplicity with geometric shapes and forms. In graphic design, the refinement of form and typography maintained the concept of craftsmanship. Typography was one of the Bauhaus's greatest legacies, with bold, clear, and simple sans serif fonts. First attending the Bauhaus as a student, Herbert Bayer became a member of the staff in 1925, teaching principles of modern typography. Bayer advocated for what he called Kleinschreibung, which translates to small writing, where he encouraged students to use all lowercase letters for text and only capital letters for display design. Here's another example of Bayer's use of small writing. In 1926, he designed this universal typeface based on the circle. Next, we'll discuss the Constructivism movement. Constructivism was the name adopted by an influential Russian youth movement and was one of the first art movements to adopt a purely non-objective approach. The goal of the Constructionists was to unite art and labor, creating utilitarian design that related to industry and propaganda that would serve the proletariat. The Constructivists believed that graphic design based on geometry and simplified Cyrillic script would be more accessible to the largely literate workforce. Constructivist typography developed as much in response to the technical limitations of the period as to an understanding of modernist theories. The Cyrillic alphabet was redrawn in pure geometric form. Alexander Rodchenko is the best known of the Constructivists and was renowned for his dynamic compositions, created using a geometric mathematical approach. He believed that graphic design should be a coded sign, unambiguous and free from ornament. His designs were composed with bold rules, contrasts of color, and block typography. They were often arranged with a strong diagonal emphasis and incorporated images of products or figures cropped at acute angles. Between 1923 and 1925, Rodchenko designed and co-edited the magazine LEF, which was about communist futurism. He designed the covers to resemble advertising posters and used intriguing black and white photography or illustrations with single spot colors to set the standard for rational modern design. Another influential and innovative designer of the period was Elazar Lissitzky. He used primary colors and geometric forms floating in space. He believed his method would create a universally understood visual language. Lissitzky wrote that the square was the source of all creative expression. Next, we'll discuss the new typography movement. In 1923, the Bauhaus appointed Professor Laszlo Moholy Nagy, who introduced the revolutionary idea of new typography to the school. Graphic design, and more specifically typography, began to play a central role. After designing the catalog for the 1923 Bauhaus exhibition and taking over the typography of the Bauhaus's books, Moholy Nagy went on to develop the school's distinct graphic identity. New typography is characterized by the use of sans serif fonts, preferably one font in a range of sizes and weights. Asymmetrical layouts provided a solution for better content hierarchy. This movement celebrated the machine instead of the human hand and promoted the idea of a universal visual language. Layout proportions were tied to the golden ratio. Minimal use of color was paramount, and the palette was limited to black, white, red, orange, yellow, and brown, with an occasional introduction of dark green and blue. This aided the viewer by providing information hierarchy only. Negative space was a very important element and was used innovatively. Another new typography designer was Jan Tschichold, who was inspired by a visit to the 1923 Bauhaus exhibit. He wrote a book in 1928 called Die Neue Typography, in which he advocated functional design by the most straightforward means possible. Tschichold applied the principles of Constructivism to his minimal and precise typography. He mixed condensed and extended versions of sans serif Gothic typefaces and preferred to use a single case in his designs. For headlines, he sometimes introduced a serif face, such as Bodoni, if it was appropriate for the subject matter. These poster designs are all based upon similar design principles. Simplicity is achieved using strong lines coupled with both geometric shapes and dynamic angles. Text is kept to a functional minimum and is used as part of the design rather than just carrying information. Overlapping colors are used to add variety and visual interest and to draw the eye to focal points on the page. Thank you for watching.